Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. It's your boy Hillman here. This video is going to be part 3 of the series documenting or talking about how my journey was becoming a medical doctor in the Netherlands as an immigrant. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the best years, right? So check out the first 2 years where I talked about in the first part, just the process of applying, the difficulties I faced and how I navigated that. And the second year, talking about the start of med school, just how year 1 was not what I expected. So in this video, I'm going to be going into the best years, right? So we'll just touch upon a few things. The next video is going to be talking about the worst years and what made it the worst years and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's jump right into this video. So when I was thinking about what years were the best years of med school, there were two things that came into my mind, right? One was obviously the best year for obvious reasons, which I'm going to explain. But the second one was the craziest year, just because it really just sticks out to me. Every time I think of med school, I have to think of that year as the craziest year. And that was year 2, right? Because if you've watched the previous video, I talk about how just starting off and navigating year 1 was just a hassle because a lot of things did not go as I expected. I was really struggling to adjust as well, to adapt to the new environment, new culture, new way of doing things, new classmates. So it was really difficult. And then I also lived outside of the city because it was difficult finding accommodation in the city when I was looking for it before moving down. So all that happened, which made year 1 just very difficult. And halfway through year 1, actually more than halfway through year 1, actually, I think it was around April when I moved from the small city Bergen de Blight into Maastricht to like right next to my university, like 5 minutes biking. So it was ideal, close to the university, close to the sports center, close to the city center. Of course, that just enhanced my social capabilities. So like the extrovert in me just like came out and just went rogue. So come year 2, I really felt like I was trying to overcompensate for lost time in year 1, if you know what I mean. It was actually wild, guys. Parties every evening, right? Like today is the party from the faculty, tomorrow is the party from some other unit, like faculty, the next day is a friend's party, then the next one is like after exam party. It was just a lot of parties back to back. And then I was in the basketball club, so I'd have those on some evenings as well. And then I started joining a lot of extracurriculars because I finally had the time to join the surgery association, join the board for the honors program, join the honors program, join the honors plus program. So it was a lot of things which all of a sudden just came on top of it, which made my days just very packed. Like year 2 forced me to learn time management because there was no other way I was going to survive it. But the parties part were the craziest part, because you would literally be in a party on Monday night till like 3 a.m. and then you have a class at 8:30 the next morning, and you're there, and you know half your classmates are all hungover. Like they're sitting there looking like zombies. No one is really getting the information, but you have to be there for participation's sake, and also it might affect your grade. So it was just that cycle repeated every day. And when I think of year 2, I just think of all that craziness. I started traveling a lot too, to some degree. Finally made friends. So it was like the hangouts were also frequent because friends finally inviting me for like their parties, and it was the international friends in this case. So year 2 was definitely the craziest year. Year 2, I think, was the first time I also failed my first course. So like the first block of year 2, I failed, and that for me was a shock, guys, because I have never actually failed an exam before, not like that. The only time I failed an exam in high school was like, I knew I was going to fail it, so it was like a joking thing. But this was the first time I actually put effort in and I did not pass. And I remember like a friend of mine literally had to like talk me through the process of processing failure. She was like, it's okay to fail and stuff like that, because I had no machinery to process this kind of things. I'd never failed before. So in my head, like, what is happening? I'm trying to be okay with it, but then I cannot process it. So that was also something which happened in year 2, the first time I failed an exam. So all in all, year 2 was just crazy. Now, the best year for me had to be year 4. Right, year 4 rotation started at more or less the end of year 4, start of year 5, because that was like in the same year. And that was because during the whole bachelor's, I had so many expectations put on myself to perform, and I feel like I was not really focused on the knowledge acquisition process. I was just focused on keeping up. So like not necessarily having to feel like I was messing up with the language or I was lagging behind because of the language. I was really playing catch up, I feel like. And that partly was because of the unrealistic expectations I put on myself, right? And starting rotations, I had the same thing. You know, you're finally in the medical world with all these doctors and these specialists who are so good at what they do. And then you are there and then you're trying to show them that you know stuff and all these kind of things which just compound on top of the expectations I already put on myself in the Dutch setting. And I remember when I from one of my rotations, we had like a midweek where we come and we have online lessons, because I was also in the aftermath of COVID. And I flew to Budapest and stayed with a friend in Budapest for that week. So I had online classes in Budapest because that's possible since it's online anyway, so I don't need to be here. And in that week, just interacting with people there and seeing, because some of them, they're also doctors. So like they left their countries and went there to be doctors and they learned the language. And just for me, seeing how going to that country, going to Budapest, going to Hungary, and seeing how different people are struggling with another language, a similar scenario but then different language, and all of a sudden my problems do not seem that big because I'm not long in the Netherlands, so then I'm an international, so it's English and everything. I don't know, there was something about it that just the way I processed it put a lot of things in perspective for me, where I came back with a heightened sense of gratitude that I get to do what I do, and a heightened sense of why do I need to prove to anybody that I'm a native when I know I'm not a native. It's like you're trying to prove something which is a lie. Like, why should you even want to do that? So I came back and I don't know, there was just this click which said, you're allowed to make mistakes. This is not your native language. You're allowed to make mistakes, and from those mistakes you learn. I feel like after that trip, I really embodied that. And the rest of med school was really just me making sure that I was navigating med school in my own unique way. So I would put in a lot of time in the hospital. If I want to travel, because traveling was important for me, especially from that experience in Budapest, I was like, okay, I need to expose myself to more. I need to see more. I need to go out of my bubble more often and see that my bubble is just very small and there's a lot more out there in the world than just in that bubble. So I wanted to travel more. So that means I will put in a lot more hours, work sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays in the hospital for my rotations, so that I can get like the Monday off the next week, so that I can travel from Friday night to Monday afternoon or something like that. And so I really was intentional. I became more intentional with making sure that I was navigating med school in my own unique way. And a lot of the times it did not make sense to my classmates how I was traveling so much, and how I was here and how I was there, and how I was still in the hospital, and how I was like still going to the gym, and I was still hanging out with friends, and like the whole balance thing, it did not make sense to a lot of people. But for me, it was just, I know what works for me in life. I've gone through hardship and I've seen that, okay, some of these things which may seem like they're nice, for me they don't work. And it's like you have to be true to yourself. And some things which for other people may be like, why are you doing that? That's the thing which is important for me. Human connection is important for me. So I would invest the time and effort into that. If it means sacrificing 2 hours here, I'll do that if I need those 2 hours to make that work. You know, it was just something where I became a lot more intentional with making sure that I'm navigating med school in my own way and not for another person. And I also just stopped trying to be perfect. Guys, it sounds so easy, right? Just stop trying to be perfect. But it was so difficult, especially if you're somebody who is like a high performer, which I am, still am, and also used to having a certain level of fluency in whatever language. You know, growing up in Cameroon, going to boarding school, I was used to having a certain level of fluency in expressing myself, and all of a sudden I'm struggling. You know, that just plays on your self-esteem. I just had to let go of that. I had to tell my ego, listen, you're not serving me at this point. Your ego has a role, it has a function, but sometimes it just overshadows everything else and it does not serve you, it does not work in your favor. And I had to put my ego in its place and just allow myself fail, learn, and grow from that. I feel like that happening at the end of year 4 was for me just like life-changing, because from then on, med school just went on to be like a fun ride. Don't get me wrong, it's challenging. You still have the rotations, the hours of rotation and studying and all those things. All those are still part of med school, but just the ability to navigate it on your own terms and not allow the whole thing to be dictated and feel like you're being dragged by med school. That switch happened in year 4 and life was never the same again. So that is just what made year 4 one of the best years. And also, like, after starting the masters, year 4, in the beginning, I just had this whole thing of the surgery rotation where it was just so difficult and I felt like I was losing myself. And contrasting that with the realization of the end of year 4, that just made a whole big difference. Where year 5 was just like, guys, we're gonna do this. We're gonna enjoy it. Med school is gonna be tough. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be all those things. But we're gonna make sure we're doing it on our terms. We're enjoying it and we're making the most of the time we are going through rotations and growing and becoming the better versions of ourselves. So that was fun. Year 4, beginning of year 5 was just fun, and the rest of med school went on to be just enjoyable. I feel like I really enjoyed the last years of med school, up until the point where I did not necessarily enjoy it that much, but that is a topic for the next video, which is going to be talking about my worst years in med school. But yeah, guys, that has been it for my best years of med school so far. year 2 being the craziest, and year 4, end of year 4, year 5 being the best. Let me know in the comment section, if you're a medical student, what has been your best years of med school. What are some things that will make med school for you really enjoyable, and what are some things that will make med school for you really tough, if you already know that, or if you're in med school. I like to hear more from you guys about your experiences and stuff like that, if you have any, of course. That has been it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked the video. If you feel like there's someone else who needs to watch this video or who needs to see the video, share it with them. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with other videos coming up. But until next time, guys, that has been it. Stay blessed and peace.